Hello and welcome to On the Podcast of The Odd Couple. This is Siddharth here.
And I'm Dr. Sheesh.
So today with us we have Siddharth Sathiaseelan, also known as Kuttan, joining us on this podcast. He has been working with AP Moller Maersk, a Danish company and the largest shipping company in the world. He joined them right after school through their scholarship program and joined their fleet as an officer and rose up the ranks. Once he was done with the sailing part of his career, he took up a shore-based role in the same company to start up a 24/7 operations team which he's currently heading. Welcome to the Odd Couple podcast, Siddharth, and maybe call you Kuttan through your pet name to avoid the confusion between my name and for our listeners.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Cheta. Thanks, Dr. Sheesh. Nice to talk to you guys, and I'm very honored to be here on your show.
Thanks a lot, Kuttan. So, as you know that on 23rd March, one of the largest container ships ever given, owned by the company Evergreen, ran aground in the Suez Canal and creating one of the largest traffic jams on either sides of the canal or the channel. So we have today with us Kuttan to throw some light on what are the repercussions, and as we recorded, the stern has been partially refloated and hopefully soon it'll be cleared, but there's hundreds of ships on either side of the channel which has led to this temporary confusion and a traffic jam. So Kuttan, what do you think that led to this particular incident?
So, this Ever Given vessel, it's one of the largest container vessels in the world. So, they come under the category of these 20,000 TEU vessels, container vessels, ultra large container vessels. And these are about 400 meters long, right? So, it's almost like 4 football fields. It's extremely long, it's extremely big. So, prima facie, what we know is that the vessel was, of course, they were going in the convoy coming from the south. So the Suez Canal. Let me give you a brief on the Suez Canal itself. So that will give you a little more perspective.
Sure.
So the Suez Canal it's about 193 kilometer long passage. It's a man-made passage, and which connects the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. And this is something which is completely owned by the Egyptian government. It is and run by the Suez Canal Authority, which is again a part of the Egyptian government. So they are in total control of this canal. So what happens is when the vessels coming from the south, when I say south, the vessels coming from Asia, they wait at the port Suez side, which is on the south side of this canal, and they start a convoy. So every day there is one northbound convoy and two southbound convoys. That's how it works in the canal. Yeah. So what happens is all these ships they anchor themselves down there on the south and the north side, both sides actually. And then they're given a number and they're given a time when to pick up anchor and then leave, start the convoy. So one by one, each vessel they get their turn and then they pick up the anchor and they start going through the canal. So this, of course, this is an ultra large VLCC, so all these vessels are given preference. I'm not sure what number he was in the convoy, but yeah. But anyway, that is not so important also here. So the incident happened around 8ish in the morning. So basically, they would have got into the canal, and he would not even have gone too far into the canal.
But just for my understanding, Kuttan, you were saying that the canal is a certain length of, I think, what would you say, 100 kilometers?
It's about 193 kilometers long.
But how wide is it? I mean, is it because you said you have which are two northbound and one southbound? Is it like a two-way street that they come across?
No.
But this ship, I guess, is so huge that it's going to take up the whole. So how wide is the Suez also for this type of traffic to go through?
Yeah. So it's about 200 odd meters wide, 205 meters odd wide. So this ship is almost like double of the breadth of the canal. So you can imagine. So what happens is the northbound vessels they go in first, and then there is a big lake in the middle of the canal.
Oh yeah.
So these buggers they go and drop anchor once again there.
Okay.
My mistake. Actually, sorry, the northbound vessels they don't drop anchor, they go through. It's the southbound vessels that is coming from the Mediterranean Sea coming into the Red Sea, right, going towards Asia. So they start earlier and they come and drop anchor in this lake to allow the northbound vessels to pass. Once their entire convoy is passed, then these guys pick up anchor and then they proceed on the way south. That's how it works.
Oh, so that's how they save time also. So it's not like you're waiting one by one to go across. You got guys coming in from there. They meet somewhere partway in the center. Then preference is given for the northbound heading towards Europe, and these guys cross and then they come back. Okay, wow. So roughly how many ships travel the Suez in a day?
So in 2020, it was actually a good year. We are looking at least 52 vessels per day. It was close to 18,800 transits in the entire year of 2020.
Wow.
So that's working out to just under 52 vessels per day. So it's quite a bit.
So how long does it take for you to transit from one end to the other end on general, like an average ship? Maybe not this one, but
Yeah, 16 to 17 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so what happens is you at least, like, if I'm talking for a guy from the southbound convoy, right? He pick sorry, the northbound convoy. Who's going north into the Mediterranean Sea. So he picks up anchor around 6 in the morning, and then you're out probably around 4 5 in the evening, depending on what number you're on the convoy. If you're the last, then of course you are delayed further up, right? You probably get out of the canal by 7 or 8 in the evening. So that's how it works. It includes all kinds of vessels. It's not just container vessels. You have tankers, you have bulk carriers. All this particular waterway is extremely crucial to global trade. 12% of the world's global trade passes through this canal. So every day this vessel is stuck there. It's almost like $10 billion worth of cargo, which is halted.
I think there are three places which are really like they call choke points in seafaring, which is one is Singapore, which is the worst, and then Panama, and then I think the Suez Canal is
Yeah.
the other point.
Singapore is basically just it's a strait, right? There are no restrictions like you have to stop and all those things. The thing with Panama and Suez is that, I mean, it is, you have a lot of restrictions. You just cannot go through. You have to. There are rules to follow and all that. Like Panama Canal, you go into certain lock gates, and then the
Yeah.
water's filled up, and you're pulled by trains. That's how it works.
That's because the water levels are different from one side to the other side. So they need to put you in a lock and then transfer you to
Exactly.
the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Suez doesn't have that. They both, the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea are pretty much on the same level that they don't have that lock system.
There's no problem with the water level there. It's only the problem of width. So only one vessel can pass at one time. So the northbound convoy passes through. The southbound convoy, they wait at the anchorage. Then once the last vessel passes through, then these guys pick up, and then they come south to join the Red Sea. So 15, 16 hours, you can imagine, at least it goes doing this.
But that beats the whole transit around the Cape of Good Hope, so, which takes, I think, approximately 3 weeks.
Yeah, so it's it can take, right? So if you're on a container ship, of course we can go very fast. It would take maybe 8 to 10 days. Yes.
Oh, I thought it's a much slower process if you've got a container ship, you're carrying so much of weight.
No, no. When I say faster, I'm talking relative to maybe a tanker vessel or something. Those vessels are very slow, right?
Or not a jet ski, or not like a speeding boat or a yacht. Okay. I thought like, okay, compared to a yacht, you guys are like, okay. Makes sense.
Right, but actually, some of these vessels, even these big vessels, we are capable of going at almost, I mean, it's 25, 26 knots.
What's a knot? Huh? What's a knot in land terms? How fast is a knot to a kilometer per hour?
So it works out to, it's about 1.8 kilometers.
Oh, one knot is around 1.8 kilometers. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like a mile. Okay.
So if you say 25 knots, close to around 50 kilometers, you can say.
I'm surprised the Americans haven't changed it over to miles for you guys, by now. If it was just...
It's
Yeah,
nautical, yeah.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, it's a standard term for us, right? So when we measure distance, we measure speed, it's done in knots. Because you have people from different parts of the world, coming to the US, and but that language has to be the same, because there's a lot of communication which happens over the radios and all those things. So if you speak something else, then it would come across as something else to somebody who
Correct.
probably doesn't know that. Yeah.
So coming back to the whole Ever Given blocking the Suez, and as you said, I mean, $10 billion worth of goods are stuck per day. And I also read some figure where there's a loss about $400 million to the Egyptian government as a fees. I mean, if I have a boat and I need to go through the Suez, what is the toll that I pay to go through it?
So again, that varies, right? It varies on, the size of the vessel. It varies on the type of the vessel. What kind of.
Right.
Now, if I'm talking about a container ship, this is the largest ever. I mean, not. I wouldn't say ever, because these ships are quite. We have quite a few of them. In Maersk, even we have the same size of vessels. So these vessels would easily cost between, a fully laden ship like this one, the Ever Given, would cost easily between 700 to 800,000, maybe even up to $1 million
What are you saying?
for one transit. Yeah.
Really? My God, I wouldn't.
But I
believe
guess
that.
it's cheaper than taking the 5,000 kilometer detour via the Cape of Good Hope, extra days. I guess it's It's basic Excel sheet calculation of profits and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's a trade-off which obviously Suez Canal wins, right? Because you're almost halving the distance. For example, right now we have already diverted a bunch of our vessels because we couldn't wait. So even Maersk, we have diverted a bunch of our vessels to go south of Good Hope. Now the problem for this is, of course, the customers are they're going to be the guys bearing the brunt of it because the cargo is going to reach them, maybe 3 weeks or 2 to 3 weeks later. So there's a compounding effect, right? Now, so the latest information also, by the way, I got was that the Ever Given has been refloated. They have managed to get the vessel out and they have brought it to this lake which I was telling you about.
Oh, they managed to nudge it off both the stern and the.
Yes, and the bow and the front side. Yes,
Oh wow, okay. I thought only one side was pulled out now.
the backside was already out. The front side which was was really wedged in, and that was a challenge. They couldn't get it out. So today was the spring tide, it was the high tide there, and
Yeah.
so they had to make best use of this time. And I think they used all their manpower and all the tugboats. And we've got experts from all over the world who have come in to help the situation. Because right now all the global focus is on Suez Canal and on this vessel, so they need to get it as soon as possible. They need to get this vessel out. So I think yes, they have pulled the vessel out. They managed to tow it out.
There was a lot of speculation on, how they're going to do it. I mean, initially they thought they were going to pull it out in 24 hours to 72 hours, but then they found out that, it's not going to be such an easy task because it was quite wedged in, like you said. But the other point which somebody was making, I think on news, which I heard, was the bow was wedged in and the stern was also wedged in. And what was happening because of that is you have a lot of load which then falls into the center. So then there's the fear of the whole hull cracking under the pressure of the weight. And I think there's a lot of science how you guys actually stack your containers up on that
Yes.
ship.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you could take us through a little bit of what that real difficulty was and what their concerns was, instead of just going in and shoving it and pushing it, I mean, it could have become more of a disaster, right?
Or even unloading it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, so that was one of the options they had thought about also, because they had to bring some of the world's largest cranes also, portable cranes, because they will need to, because the Suez Canal does not have any rails, or they don't have anything where there are cranes waiting for you if such a situation happens. So this crane will have to come on a tugboat or a supply vessel or something, and then they will have to, and it is going to it's going to be a challenge for such a huge crane to come into the Suez
But
Canal.
even those cranes, I think, are equipped for smaller boats, not this one, which is, I think these are 9 stacked or 20 stacked or something
Yeah,
like that.
these are maybe 9, even probably even 11 stacked. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how much this was stacked at, but they would remove some of the cargo from the front of the vessel. So that's generally, it tapers down. So generally, the front side, okay, it might be a little easier to get the cargo out. So that was one of the options which was also being thought over. I mean, but if that had happened, then it would take much longer for it to get better, because they have to get the container out and then they have to place the container somewhere, right? It's a whole load of containers. I mean, because if you look at the Suez Canal, on the side where the vessel has the bow is, it's just sand. It's the Sinai Peninsula on that side. It's just sand, and there's nothing else there pretty much. On this side is a little more green. On the left side is a little more green, so it's okay. But on the right side there's hardly anything. You will see some barracks here and there and all those things, and then it's pretty much sand and some. Yeah, that's what it is.
So in 1967, during the Arab Wars with Israel and Egypt, I remember reading that there was one of the longest ever jam or the closure of the Suez Canal for about 8 years.
They closed the canal until 1975. They closed the canal for I think from from 1967
Right.
until this whole situation was sorted out. There was a treaty which was, I think it was called the Constantinople Treaty or something, and long back. And this was one of the canals which was supposed to be used, which could be used freely by all countries, all nationalities, irrespective of during wartime or peace.
Yeah.
And this was the one time that exception was made, and the canal was closed. But after that, okay, they also managed to make some improvements. They made the canal longer. They were able to dredge further, so deeper ships. I mean, ships could go in.
Yeah, I mean the Suez, I mean, was never this big. It was actually like some 36 feet wide when they first started it in the 1800s, and it's grown with all the dredging and the constant growth with the ships. So yeah.
Yeah, it was also about the point where how the canal it's because it is the biggest money churner. Let me put it that way for Egypt. This canal single-handedly does that.
I mean, Egypt has gone through a lot of things to retain this canal, because they were the ones who helped build it, but they lost it to the British, and then the whole colonization of Egypt, and then their fight to, for independence, and then reclaim this, and then battling it in the UN, and then the UN finally stepping in and sanctioning and saying, you know what, it belongs to the Egyptians. Yeah, so they have
You've done your homework there.
a little bit much. So they do have a lot in stake because they went bankrupt even making the Suez. So,
Yeah.
this is the real money churner for them, and they are losing big time. Every day it stays closed.
Every day stays closed, yeah. But I can also imagine how Ever Given and that company Evergreen, they have a huge, hefty bill, which is they'll have to pay a lot of people.
So, while Evergiven and their company Evergreen figures out how to pay these upcoming bills, we'll take a quick break.
You're listening to the Odd Couple Podcast. Odd Couple Podcast. A Pandemia Inc. production.
Are you ready?
A friendly fireside chat with friends where no topic is beyond a healthy discussion, punctuated with a laugh or two.
Check it out!
Tune in every fortnight on your favorite podcast network.
And we are back. So, Kutan, I think we kind of signed out on a very interesting note of the liabilities on who. Because before I come to the whole insurance angle and the whole what is the liability of Evergreen, I believe that during any kind of passage, even if it is to a port, you have a pilot who comes on board, who helps the ship to navigate and reach safely and reach you to the port or cross a canal or anything like that. So I believe a pilot should have boarded this ship and guided it. So wouldn't it be a pilot's problem and Egypt's problem and their liability?
No, so the way it works, unfortunately, this is how it is works in the maritime field, right? By maritime law, the master is always liable. He's in command, and
Who's master?
anything which
Sorry.
the master is the captain of the ship.
All right. Okay.
That still holds true, that the captain goes down with the
Yeah.
ship.
His word is final, right? Even now, because ours is still very traditional, very hierarchical. The master's word is final, and he is responsible for everything which happens to the ship. No matter who, whether the pilot is there, the pilot is not there, the ship is still, and anything which goes wrong will still fall under his. He will be held responsible in a court of maritime law. That's how it's going to work.
Wow.
You guys have a separate law system, is it?
Yeah. So there is you have maritime law that.
So this is not fought in normal court of law?
It will be done in a normal court of law, but of course the maritime rules that will be the one which is engaging this whole thing. So what happens is, yes, you have pilots which go on board your vessels in most ports. Depending on the size of the ship, some places exempted also. But in Suez, it's pretty much always there. You have a pilot who boards both the sides, from the north side and the south side, and he is the guy who's generally sitting on a chair there, and he's telling we have a helmsman, the guy who's driving the boat in these canals and all that. It's always manual steering. We don't do automatic steering. So basically there's a guy standing at the steering wheel, and he's the old fashioned way, you remember, like in Titanic and all that, right? So the same thing.
Surprising.
That's how it works. That's how it is.
I thought by now we would have automated this thing,
No, because the thing is, it's so narrow, right? Things can go wrong very fast. Like what happened, the same in this case I ever given, right? Suppose the machine goes wrong and the autopilot fails, then to take over, it still takes a few seconds. Maybe even 30 seconds is quite a long time in this kind of situation.
Correct.
So we always have it on manual steering. So the pilot gives the helm orders, steer this course and all those things, and the helmsman is supposed to steer that. But again, he is, by the rules, he is still only under an advisory capacity. The final say is still the master. He can override the pilot if he thinks that the pilot is doing something wrong. He's giving a wrong order, or he's making some kind of a mistake.
But generally, when the pilot comes on and he takes over, does the captain actually stay on board, or does he move aside and say, okay, this guy's anyway got all the experience?
In most ports, the reason why we have a pilot is because they know the local rules, local regulations. They're in contact with all the, we have tugboats and different people they need to contact. He knows the local waterways, how to go through it.
Which is the shallow, which is the deep, if you're moving
Exactly,
away.
all those. So these guys are given the control in a way that, yes, they give the helm orders and all that, but we have to, if you're a master, then you have to keep an eye and make sure that everything is going fine. Everything is, he's doing it properly, and you have the right to override the pilot also.
So, Kutan, as you mentioned that, yes, since the maritime law states that the master can override the pilot, and ultimately the liability falls on the owners of the ship or who has leased it or whatever it might be. So how much are these ships insured for? I guess the larger ships more. And would it ever cover all the cost which is actually piled up, like in this case?
No, it's going to be a very, very expensive litigation. I can tell you that all those insurances are there, but in this case, it's a very different situation, right? Because now, I mean, if it actually goes to a situation, because now you're probably even liable for all of the other vessels who are not able to deliver their cargo. So
Damn.
those owners, those shippers, all of them can, claim here. So it gets very, very funny in this case. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how this is going to pan out. Of course, Evergreen, they have to bear the brunt of this bill. And this litigation for sure is going to go on for many years with the Suez Canal Authority, and then for all the other people who are going to, lay their claims.
So my doubt here is it Evergreen which should bear the cost, or would it be the owner, which is the Japanese company who owns the ship actually?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the clauses are here for this, because sometimes these vessels are chartered and there's a different type of chartering also.
Okay.
So that it'll all come down to that and what the charter terms are. But yes, the owner, of course, there is going to be a hefty bill for him. That's for sure.
Now we spoke about who's liable and everything, and as you rightly mentioned, there are a lot of other these hundreds of ships which are stuck in the traffic jam, delayed due to this, and there might be a liability on their side also. But I also presume there's going to be a huge traffic jam once it's opened at the ports. There'll be like at the anchoring and everything. There'll be a huge queue.
Yeah.
And that there'll be further delays because of that. How long before do you think things will normalize, considering the fact that it's been refloated?
So I think once the thing is cleared, I mean, they will have to do. I don't think they will let the vessels go through immediately, although they will try to make it as soon as possible. They'll have to do a kind of a sounding of the area where the vessel had actually, grounded. Because the sands underneath the thing below has changed definitely, right? Now you don't want the vessel behind to have the same situation where she goes right in the center and she grounds. So they'll have to check all that, test all that, and once everything is fine, then they give the go ahead for the vessels to pass. But I think once now that the vessel is out, they will be looking to move vessels as soon as possible. So maybe in the next 2-3 days we'll expect to see vessels going through the canal as normal. But it is just that there is a huge pile up. Over 400 ships are already piled up, and yeah, today the seventh day already, right? So it is going to be quite a backlog, and it will be like a first come first serve basis. So whichever guys are there first, they get the chance to go through, and so it just waits like that.
And at the ports too. Now the ports have been empty for a while because you haven't had these ships coming in.
That's the next problem, right? Especially the vessels going into Europe and all that. And all these container vessels, we are on what is called a liner trade. So we have the same, all these vessels in different companies, doesn't matter which company you are, it's pretty much standard ports. Because of the size of the vessel, there are only a certain limited amount of ports which you can go to. Be it Musk, be it Evergreen, be it MSC, be it CMA, CGM, whichever it is. So all these ports, this vessel was supposed to go to Rotterdam.
Right.
Yes, and I know a whole bunch of other vessels which are my own vessels which are bound for Rotterdam. So there is going to be heavy congestion there also. And the logistics in Europe right now because of the COVID lockdowns has become even worse. So it is going to be a challenge to get all these containers out, turn the vessel around, get the next vessel in. Yeah, it's going to be a problem. And also the issue is back in Asia, we are now facing a container shortage. There's a lot of volume, there's a lot of cargo which needs to be shipped out, but there's no containers enough. It's a industry issue here for container industry.
And why is that? What is the reason for that? Is it just a lack of shortage of sheer thing, or is it because of COVID? Is it because of a sudden surge?
Yeah, it's just that the surge is so much, the volume is so much. After this, especially after China opened up after last year's COVID thing, right? The demand has been so much. E-commerce has boomed quite a bit, right? So a lot of people are buying stuff. Also, there's an issue with the US East Coast, West Coast, Long Beach and Los Angeles. Their ships are waiting for 4-5 days because they're not able. There are some issues over there, logistical issues over there as well. So all this is actually delaying it, and then the empty containers, are not being able to come back in time. Shippers are ready, people are waiting, exporters are waiting to put their merchandise into the containers and send it. But it's just not enough. We actually have to refuse clients simply because there are no containers enough. And this situation, yeah, is expected to be like this at least for some time until this situation it gets better over time.
Yeah, and that's crazy because considering the fact that I guess 70 to 90% of the world's trade happens through ships, right? And
Yep.
and we'll think, oh, there's aeroplanes and stuff like that. Why don't we send it through them? But the sheer volume that a ship can carry, I guess that's what would be. And this is going to have a cascading effect on oil prices, on electronic goods, and anything that is transported.
Everything, because a lot of crude oil and other petroleum products are traded through the Suez Canal, right? From the Middle East, you have a lot of oil which is coming through, and that has to go to Europe. You could see it actually on the first day itself. The global oil prices, they already spiked,
Correct.
and it was simply because, I mean, that's the way it. I mean, the oil industry works. It is very volatile, right? It keeps jumping up and down. And this was basically expectation of how long this is going to happen. And then let me say the silver lining in this whole situation right now is the demand in Europe is slightly lesser than normal because of the COVID lockdowns. Otherwise, this oil, I mean, the oil prices would have really skyrocketed by now because the ships are not able to get through the canal to reach the other side to Europe. So there was a time actually, if you remember, even back in India, I think it was over 10 years back, there was fuel shortage in Chennai. I remember this because I used to see it in the papers. And then people are fighting in the petrol bunks and all that to get that 1 liter of petrol.
True.
And finally, two huge super tankers had to come. I don't know what the reason was at that point, why there was so much delay, but finally, after they came, only there was some respite from this whole situation. So you can just imagine, I mean, just it's the whole continent of Europe which is going to be affected because of this. So because of all that, there is going to be numbers are going to spike. But again, it won't be for long term. I think this it will come back now that this vessel has been refloated. It should start coming back to normal soon.
But another thing which I wanted to know was there any worry, with a lot of these ships now backing up and waiting at the end of the Red Sea? Was there always that worry of the Somalian pirates and things which we hear of?
So thankfully, in the Red Sea, there's not so much of pirate activity. It's more towards the Horn of Africa, Somalia.
Oh, so as they go down towards
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay, okay.
So I mean, if yeah, they could have used the opportunity. I mean, if
I mean, they're all just sitting duck
they
over
could
there,
have,
right?
yeah, they can try their luck also.
So, to all our Somali listeners,
But I'm sure you guys are much more prepared nowadays. Like I have seen, like like a lot more guns and people carry more guns and stuff like that. Do you guys carry guns? What's
No,
the
no, no,
thing?
no. We don't. We don't. We're not allowed to carry guns. So what happens is yeah. So some companies they have armed guards on board. So they join the ship for that part where they pass through this area, and then they disembark them. So that is a common practice which is being done. I mean, most vessels, these container ships generally are. It's not that easy to board simply because of their speed and their height and all that. I mean, Maersk Alabama was a different case, but
right.
uh, apart from that, it's not that easy. But you have all these big tanker vessels and bulk carriers carrying ore and coal. So they are very low in the water because they are so heavily laden. They're quite low in the water and they're very slow. So it's very easy for these guys to on a speedboat they can just come put on those grappling hooks and just climb on. It's not that hard. But there are regulations again. There are the world's navies are there. You have a lot of patrol boats and different countries. All their navies are there in that area just to make sure that everything is going properly. But the area itself is so vast, right? An attack can happen.
But I'm sure you guys follow certain pathways, and
Yeah, yeah.
so do you come across all these naval ships and everything? Do you need to identify yourself, etc.?
Yes. So there is a procedure when vessels we have to send them some information and all those things so they know that which vessels are there. And so even in the Horn of Africa, in the Gulf of Aden area, there is a convoy process. So
Oh, okay.
at least the smaller vessels and all those ones which can't go that fast, they employ these. So the armed guards take them in a convoy and they go through. So, but I mean, the Gulf of Aden is a little large, so it's not so much of an issue. It's not restricted like a water canal, like Suez Canal.
So, Gridin, another question which I wanted to ask you was this accident waiting to happen? Because with all the cost cutting which is going on today, like most of these companies are being run by big MBA fraternities, and their whole job is just to cut the cost down. So your ships have got bigger, the amount of load they're carrying is far greater, and your crews are starting to get smaller. Right? So is it that you guys are really just getting better at micromanaging stuff, or is it purely a cost cutting factor?
That's a good question. Because I mean, I am in that business itself, right? So yes, I know what you're talking about. But if you think about it, these size of vessels have been there for a while. These ultra large container vessels and all these big vessels have been there for a while. And I think the largest vessel which had run aground was it was like a 13,000 TEU vessel. It's much smaller, and that was also I think removed within a few days. And we had one of our own also, one of the Maersk vessels which had run aground in the Suez. It was all done in a few days. This one was a little special simply for the fact that, I mean, again, we don't know the full details of. Some say it is because of the sandstorm and the winds and all those things. Now there is speculation that there was also some other failure which has also led to the situation, or it could be a combination of both, right? So, I mean, that's how it is. It is going to get bigger and bigger.
Because most people are asking that question, because if there was a sandstorm and there was poor visibility, why did they let the ship go in? So that's where the whole, now the thing comes in of speculation. Was there something wrong with the ship that, so that's the whole question,
Yeah. Because generally, I mean, the pilot would also give information, and what happens is generally in a sandstorm, you are, I mean, they don't let you go in anyway. Yeah. And if it happens when you're in the convoy or something, then you're moored to the side of the thing. The whole convoy stops and you're moored because you can't see. Maybe this happened so fast. I mean, the storm, the dust storm or the winds picked up so fast, and it all happened. And I could see I saw the track of the vessel. It didn't take too long before this whole thing, went sideways.
And the crew which we have, they're seasoned crew, right? They're not like some amateur crew or something.
And apparently all Indians.
Yeah, they're all, but most of I think the merchant navy thing, a majority are Indians. Is that true?
Not necessarily. I mean, if you see in the shipping fraternity itself, I mean, at least the seafarers, Philippines is the biggest seafaring country. Of course, we have a big amount, but then it's not compared to Philippines. I mean, there almost every second person is a sailor in Philippines. But as Indians, yes, we are very seasoned, and this. I mean, I've seen some stories where they have specifically mentioned that the entire crew was Indian and all that, and that could have, but it's got nothing to do with that. In this situation, if it happened like this, and it could have happened to anybody.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter who the yeah. So I mean, the training and all that is as per what is required, right? It's a worldwide. It's the same competence you require, and only then once you pass all those exams and once you get those competences, only then you can actually even work on a vessel. Forget about taking command. So it's got nothing to do with that. It's just sheer bad luck, I guess.
I guess.
Let me put it that way.
So on that note, we'll just take a quick break and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Odd Couple Podcast. Odd Couple Podcast. A Pandemia Inc. production.
Are you ready?
A friendly fireside chat with friends where no topic is beyond a healthy discussion, punctuated with a laugh or two. Check it out! Tune in every fortnight on your favorite podcast network.
And we are back. So, Kutan, now you've been sailing more than a decade, if not more. I don't know exactly how long you've been sailing. And I'm sure you would have traversed the Suez Canal and other canals across the world. Any interesting stories that come to mind that you can share with us?
Yeah. Yeah, the Suez Canal itself is quite a bit of stories, right? I think in a year I used to go through the canal at least 5 to 6 times
Wow.
on these similar type of vessels, like they ever given, maybe slightly smaller, but yeah, similar types at least. See, it's called the Marlborough Canal, right? I mean, at least in the among the seafarers,
Okay.
because of the amount of Marlboro we got to give to different people,
Ooh.
Oh, it happens in cigarettes?
So, apart from the $700,000 that you pay as toll, you need to make extra payments in terms of Marlboro
Only the
cigarettes.
smoke gets you through.
Yeah. So all this gold flake and camel oil doesn't work there. It's only Marlboro. So, I mean, Maersk, we have stopped this whole thing process, but there are companies we still give this as to the pilots, to the people who come on board. That's another story, right? Because you have every time you go on for the Suez Canal passage, you have a what you call a mooring boat who's supposed to be a part of we are supposed to pick them up, and it comes along with the vessel. And it's simply for this factor when in case you have a sandstorm or something, then these guys are lowered down and they are supposed to use our mooring ropes and tie the ship to the side. That's the reason why these guys are there. They do nothing. They they just come, they have a good time for the whole day, and of course they have something they make something like a shop on board.
Oh,
They sell all these small Egyptian stuff and stuff what they've got from other ships also, they sell it back to us. All that also
so it's like a flea market.
Oh, that's interesting.
And-
Man.
yeah, because it's funny because they keep telling me, hey, my friend, I give you good price. You're my good friend, I give you good price. I look at it, it's the same gloves which I have on board as well. They take it from some other ship.
You probably would have given it to him last time and he's selling it back to you this time.
Could be, yeah. And of course, they have all these Egyptian some trinkets and this Aladdin's lamp and all that stuff, right? All that stuff they
Nice.
sell. They, people buy it. Yeah, some of these guys buy it. It's good fun also. So okay. Usually when they go, also they're given like a carton of cigarettes or a pack of cigarettes or something. We don't do it anymore, but there are a lot of companies which still that practice is still maintained.
But that's, I don't think that's like a big thing.
After this incident, I think Evergreen has got to supply the entire Egypt with Marlboro.
There's not going to be enough Marlboros to get them across the canal next time. Yeah, that's true.
But I've heard there are a lot of these, little gray area, but there are certain countries where you go to get, I heard you need to get certified, especially your cargo holds. When you're holding it, needs to get Ford grade certified every time you need to clean it, I presume, and somebody needs to come and certify it, and you need slightly more than Marlboros to.
Yeah.
I heard such stories. Is it
Yeah,
true?
yeah. All these are secrets. I can't reveal all that here, but yes.
It makes the difference.
Awesome.
No, but otherwise, the Suez Canal transit, it's actually, it keeps us a little bit, a little alert, as this incident has shown, right? You got to be very alert at all times, and even in spite of all that, things can go wrong, and if it goes wrong, it goes very wrong, especially with the size of vessels we're going through with. So yeah, I personally I used to like the passage. It's nice to just watch outside and look around also and to see how things are developing. But I can tell you nothing had developed in the time I had sailed there. It was still the same every year I passed through.
So, as I said earlier, you've been sailing for a bit, and how did you choose to get into this career? Point number one. How was your experience sailing, good, the bad? And as well as, why did you choose to stop sailing and then take a shore job?
So basically, after the 12th, right, as usual, all of us were contemplating on what to do next and all that stuff. And then one of my family friends, he was not from Michael's, but he was 2 years senior to me. He had got into merchant navy, and he was raving about it, about the life and all those things. I was like, oh, okay, it sounds good and all that. And luckily for me, that particular year, AP Moeller Maersk, that was the first time they were coming to India to recruit cadets. There was a scholarship program they were having, and they were recruiting us people from India. It was just at that point, it was, yeah, let's try this and see what it is all about. And then I remember going to this institute. It's in Chennai. It's the biggest maritime institute in the south, AMET. There was a whole bunch of tests and all that, interviews and all that at that point, and then we managed to get through all of it. And we were 37 of us who were selected.
Once you got in, did it live up to the expectation of what your senior built it up for you, or once you reached there, you were just cursing him like this is what you were talking about?
No.
Because it's hours and hours of you're on the sea for 6 months, right? And then you come back in.
Yeah, so as a cadet, it was a little longer, right? As a cadet, yes, 6 months. I even done an 8 month stint and all that. And the 8 month stint was on a super tanker, one of these big tanker vessels carrying fuel, right? And I was there for 8 months, and those 8 months I had never stepped ashore also. That was quite bad. But the environment on these tanker vessels is much better because everybody we become kind of a family, right? So it's only you 25 guys or whatever. And yes, so there used to be a lot of parties and a lot of games, and that time even booze was there, so it was, and long sailing also. So there was a long time at sea where you could have. It was pretty okay.
So now you mean that there's no booze on the ships now? You can't drink now?
Yes, at least in my company, it's completely stopped. We have a zero alcohol policy.
What?
Yeah, it's been many years now. It's been almost 15 years.
So,
plus.
like, do you guys get a Saturday, Sunday off while you're sailing?
No, absolutely not.
There's no holiday for 6 months.
There's
You
no
just
holiday,
every day's work.
No. Every day's work. So you have my contracts are for 2.5, maximum 3 months when I was an officer, right? So that was fine. I used to join somewhere in Europe or something, and by the time I come back to Europe next time, it's time to go home. So that was perfect. 2.5 to 3 months. It was great. Yeah, actually, I had to join sometimes in the Suez Canal also, and that was a whole story by itself.
Do tell us.
So you put up in Cairo, that's a good hotel and all that, and then from there you're taken in all these dusty roads up to this port side, which is on the north side of the Suez Canal. Uh, and yes, after a point you realize it's crazy there, right? It's chaotic, completely chaotic. If you think here it's bad, there it's
Really, I find that very surprising. I thought India was quite chaotic on its own.
so. I mean, and after a point, I mean, there was no car also. You had to drag your bag, then you had to go through it, and then you go on a boat, and that because the ship does not stop on the way, right? The ship is moving, and the boat comes alongside, and you're supposed to jump onto one ladder and then climb up.
That's
That's how
crazy.
it works in the Suez. Yeah, it's still crazy there. There have been situations where I've almost lost balance and I fell into the water also.
Oh shit.
It didn't happen, thankfully, but it could have. Because I mean, when the ship is moving, it's moving a lot of water also, and you're coming in a very small boat. And that boat, I mean, keeping it steady there next to the ship is a bit of a challenge.
That's why you give them Marlboros. So they keep the boat steady for you. If not, you fall down.
But yeah, so coming back to the point about the career thing, right? So once I finished the studies and finished my cadetship, then I joined as an officer in AP Mola Maersk, and then I continued up the ranks. The reason why I quit, was once my kid was born, I did one sail, and then it was not the same. So I was like, okay, I should look for something else now. So at that point, unfortunately, I hadn't taken command also yet. That was one regret I still have, but then okay, this is a decision you take and you live with it. Now looking back, yes. So we started up this whole 24/7 setup in Mumbai at that point, and then we moved to Singapore, and now I'm back here, heading the team and all that. So in a way, it's been good. It's been a good ride all those way. And the sailing itself was fantastic. You go to all these normal ports, which are which everybody knows, and then you go to a lot of ports which are very nondescript. You don't even know about it.
How many countries have you sailed through?
I think the last count was, I think, close to 57. I think, if I'm
Oh,
not wrong.
wow.
Yeah, my kid was keeping account, and I think yes, it was that.
But what about that old saying that you have girlfriends in every port? Is that true, and are you missing that?
I think my wife's probably going to hear this podcast also. I think.
So, thank you so much, Siddharth, aka Kutan, for joining us on the Odd Couple podcast for a fun chat, especially on this current topic of the Suez Canal thing. But thankfully, it's opened up and we're looking for positive things. So, keep tuning in on the Odd Couple podcast. Do check out our new website, which is www.theoddcouple.in for all the latest news, and you can reach out to us through the website. So, this is Siddharth here signing off. Thank you so much, Kutan.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. See you all. Bye bye.
See you all on the other side. Until next time, this is Dr. Sheesh.
Bye bye.